Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I am John Ledyard, along with my boss, the one and only, recently returned from suspension from the podcast, Scott Reynolds. Woo, woo. We need like sound effects.
That tremendous intro, John. I appreciate that. So rumors about
good to have you back, boss.
Rumors about my demise were greatly exaggerated.
People thought after that Saints loss that you just I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, they didn't see the follow-up to the tweet that I put out during the game, which was this: in my 25 years of covering the team, this might be the worst loss I've ever the worst game I've ever covered.
Right.
The reply to that was like, I'm out. I'm done. No, but just to put a quick nail in that coffin, certainly nothing went right for the Buccaneers, and it was interesting because we had a chance, John, to talk to Bruce Arians today on the podcast, or I should say on the conference calls, and one of the things that I wanted to know about was, and we talked about this a little bit, or wrote about this a little bit in our Pewter Report Roundtable. What part of this team concerns you the most right now, the offense or the defense? You and I were both in agreement it's the defense because of some recent trends. And the interesting thing is when you look at the last three games, right, you're looking at a Raiders team that's good, not great, but good, a Giants team that's awful, and a Saints team that is still very good. And we saw how good they were on Sunday night. And so you look at that, and there's a couple of trends. And one that I asked Arians about was the running game, and having given up 76 yards to the Raiders, not a big deal because this team allows 77 for the average, but then 101 yards against the Giants, which caught everybody by surprise, and then 138 yards to the Saints. And what we saw was the Giants really kind of lay a bit of a dangerous blueprint out because they went with a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, a lot of 2 and 3 tight end groupings, used a power running game against the Buccaneers, who don't have Vita Vea right now. And we saw the Saints do the exact same thing. And one key thing Arians said, John, that I want you to react to is that when teams do that, it keeps the Bucs in base personnel. And their strength is really in nickel, which they play a whole bunch because this is a passing league. But that's really where Arians, or I should say Todd Bowles, can get into his exotic blitzes. And that's where they can really bring the pass rush. When you're in base defense, it kind of limits what you can do from that exotic pass rush type situation because you're not in third and long situations.
Right. And you would hope that the offset of that would be, it's easier to match up in coverage. You got 2 tight ends on the field. For most teams in the NFL, that's not putting them in a passing strength, having 2 tight ends in the NFL. Now, the Saints may be an exception because Taysom Hill, everybody wants to decide if he's a running back or a quarterback. I think he's actually best as a tight end. He's a good player. Jared Cook's a good player, and Adam Troutman, who they took in the 3rd round this past year, is a good player. So they're one of those teams that presents a challenge there. The Panthers are obviously very much not one of those teams. I'm not even sure. I mean, is Ian Thomas still their number 1 tight end? I mean, it's just totally obscure. They don't even. Joe Brady probably uses tight end less than anybody in the league, and so there's just not. It's not the same threat. But you're right. Like theoretically, you'd love to say, okay, well, that's true. Like, we might not be able to blitz like we used to, but we should be able to match up person. And we have, super athletic linebackers that can cover, at least Levante David can. And Jordan Whitehead's rolled down on tight ends before, we can do this, but when you're playing zone defense, as often as they are, you're not matching up in man. And so it's harder to eliminate those guys, and it makes life a little bit easier for everybody to get open when you're just looking for space.
And so I think if I hear you correctly, your takeaway is that while Sean Payton, who's a brilliant offensive minded coach, he played more 2 and 3 tight ends in this game than he did in week 1. And I think that was a reaction to, I kind of see what the Giants did to really kind of thwart this Todd Bowles defense a little bit, especially from the running game standpoint. And so he went to that. But what you're saying is Joe Brady doesn't really have the personnel to do that, or really even the inclination. So it's one of those things the Bucs might benefit from this blueprint being laid out these last 2 weeks of how you run against this team, by the Panthers probably ignoring it and just kind of sticking with what they've done over the past couple of weeks, which is keeping keeping games tight and putting up some points. They put up 31 against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So maybe the Bucs luck out here because they don't have the personnel or the inclination to stick with what the Giants and Saints have done.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how Carolina, if they adjust anything, because remember, my guess is they come away from the last time they played them thinking if we don't turn the ball over, we might win that game. Right. Because remember, they turned over a lot. Yeah, now and I don't think the Bucs defense had their best day necessarily, but they were opportunistic for sure. And the pressure affects Teddy Bridgewater. That's the big thing. The Panthers offensively, at the end of the day, they're going to use some play action, but not as much as, the top teams in the league. They're going to do some different things with their personnel deployments and with Curtis Samuel in the backfield. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to whether Bridgewater can make plays against pressure. He's thrown 5 picks against pressure this season. He's the 9th most pressured quarterback in the NFL. He's a quarterback passer rating of 47.3 under pressure this year. He's still actually pretty accurate. It's just very short stuff. He's getting the ball to saying, so he's very much becomes a big check down guy if you can pressure him and rattle him most of the time. He's actually thrown the ball down the field this year, but pressure is kind of like the great equalizer against him. It's what's kind of brought him down. And so I think that if the Bucs can do that, but again, this is a team that you want to blitz the heck out of. I think you had to choose your spots against the Saints to a degree, but you want to come after Teddy Bridgewater. There's no doubt about it, in my opinion.
The interesting thing is when you look back at that week 2 game, the Panthers actually had 2 receivers go over 100 yards, Robbie Anderson and also DJ Moore. So Bridgewater was able to maybe attack this secondary a little bit better than other quarterbacks have from a statistical standpoint. Didn't have the touchdowns, obviously, that Drew Brees did before. But, Carlton Davis, I think he's going to match up against Robbie Anderson. I think that's the matchup to watch. And believe it or not, Robbie Anderson has more yards on Carlton Davis, 3 catches for 76 yards than any other receiver this year. And the 39-yarder he caught against Davis was the longest play that Davis has given up. Davis still did a really good job on him, kept him out of the end zone. But I'm just saying, out of all the receivers Carlton Davis has been matched up against, Robbie Anderson was the guy that really gave him the most problems, statistically speaking, in terms of yards after catch, the big catch at 39 yards.
I'm trying to remember that throw. Do you remember the 36-yarder?
I don't, John. I'm 48.
It's not coming to my mind. Yeah. It's not coming to my mind. I remember the DJ Moore. I mean, he was matched up with the funny thing about last matchup, and you mentioned Carlton Davis maybe being with Robbie Anderson. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, like you said, they have a couple good receivers, and last game he didn't match up with anybody. It was just kind of a mix. Whoever, DJ Moore, he had the interception. He was covering DJ Moore. I know he gave up a dig route to DJ Moore earlier in the game, and that's what he kind of learned from when he made the play for the pick. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Robbie Anderson, like you said, he's clearly kind of emerged as the top guy as the season's gone on, but Moore can still put up yards too.
And so, sure can. And you mentioned Curtis Samuel. He's a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can line up in the slot. He can line up out wide. He's kind of that joker, that guy that can play a bunch of different roles in Joe Brady's offense.
Yeah, and how the Panthers are so difficult to defend, I think, is because of the different ways that they can beat you. They haven't run the ball great this season, but they've been effective as an offense without Christian McCaffrey, and they're going to have to do it again as Christian McCaffrey is going to be out for this matchup as well. And so can't everybody, that Bucs fans maybe excel there, but I don't know that it is much to excel. I mean, to be honest, the Bucs, first of all, have shut down Christian McCaffrey in the 3 times they played him under Todd Bowles. He scored a couple touchdowns, but he hasn't made big plays. They had never really gotten the running game on track against Tampa Bay. I think the passing game is really what you're concerned about here. And Mike Davis is great in the passing game. He had 8 catches for 74 yards. He toasted Devin White a few times last time they met. So
and he's a power runner too. He's he's a more physical runner than Christian McCaffrey is. I think that Mike Davis presents more matchup problems for the Buccaneers defense than Christian McCaffrey does, because I think you go back to even last year under Todd Bowles' defense, they've done a pretty good job of corralling and containing Christian McCaffrey. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I don't think there's going to be much drop off at all in this Panthers run game with Mike Davis, as you said, has done a really good job in the absence of McCaffrey, and I guess if you're looking for a positive for the Buccaneers, you have to focus on one guy. Both of those guys, McCaffrey and Davis, won't be in the lineup, so you can kind of zero in a little bit on Davis. John, let's just talk real quick about the injury report that just came out for the Bucs and the Panthers, Shaq Barrett and Levante David were added to the injury report. Shaq's got a shoulder, limited participation today. Levante David with the knee, obviously hyperextended that a little bit in the game, still managed to play the entire game, limited participation. Chris Godwin, we spoke to him on the conference call. We'll get into that in a little bit with his finger, limited participation. Rob Gronkowski was a veteran day off today. Ali Marpet, good news on Ali Marpet. He did have limited participation. It sounded like Bruce Arians was hopeful that he returns, right, John?
Right. He's kind of in the last stages of that concussion protocol. I think it's the question really is whether he gets recurring headaches from being limited in practice. You know, if he regresses, then obviously it's a concern. So that's what they're kind of monitoring over the next 48 hours.
And John, let's stick on that for a second. Let's assume worst case scenario, Ali Marpet's not back. Joe Haig really struggled mightily, especially in pass protection, right? I mean, we really can't even give him a run grade because there's only 4 carries.
Oh my gosh.
So
I wish Bucs fans could see the offensive line like during the game live the other night, and they would know why a lot of the offensive struggles happened because Joe Haig was rough. You know, he had he gave up 7 pressures for a quarterback who's getting the ball out of their hands, one of the fastest in the league. You know, and it would have been that number would have been a lot worse if Tom Brady hadn't gotten the ball out. I mean, that's a game. I'm just being honest with you, Scott. That's a game. Jameis Winston would have been sacked 7 times, 8 times. That's just reality. And so, you know,
and to be fair to Jameis, he also would have probably rushed for about 40 yards too. You know, it's live and die with him. He has the mobility to escape. So there would have been some big plays there, but certainly those sacks as well. So John, my question to you is, what do you do if Ali Marpet is not the option to go because let's say he has a turn for the worst with the concussion protocol? You don't want Joe Haig in there. What do you do with this offensive line?
Well, I think that
Ryan Jensen the guard and put Shipley at center.
That would be the move that I would make. But there's a couple things to consider. You know, the Saints are much better and more diverse and deeper pass rushing group. The Panthers have not been a good pass rushing group basically this entire season. Brian Burns is a threat, and he honestly got Tristan Wirfs once early in the game, and he got Donovan Smith a couple times later. Yeah. He's a real threat. Great player who's becoming an elite player, I think. But after that, there really isn't anything pass rush wise, you know, with this team. So it's
9 sacks through the
they're 9 sacks total, right? And their pressure rate is also they're 30th, tied for 30th in pressure rate this season, and they're 30th in blitz rate. So they don't rush. They rush with 4. They're not good at it. They don't pressure the quarterback. They don't sack the quarterback, and they don't care to get better at it by blitzing. So that's just kind of who they are at this point. So it's a much more friendly matchup for the offensive line. Yeah. So you could start Joe Haig and maybe you get away with it, but it's risky.
Yeah. And John, without James Bradbury, who we saw a couple weeks ago in New York, they really don't have the corners to really make the quarterback hang on to the ball to allow that front 4 to get there. You got Dante Jackson's probably their best guy. He's a step down from Bradbury. So, you know, that's an issue there. Rounding out the injury report for the Buccaneers, Steve McLendon, shoulder injury, limited participation. Scotty Miller, hip groin, limited participation. Jason Pierre-Paul, knee, limited participation. Those aren't really surprises. For the Panthers, you got Reggie Bonifant, the ankle, limited participation. Justin Burris, rib injury, limited participation. Jeremy Chin with the knee is also limited.
He missed the last game.
He did, yeah. And Yatura Gross-Matos, the draft pick, defensive end.
He didn't play the last time.
He did not.
He's been decent for them. That could be a pass rush bump for them if he can play.
Exactly. Marquise Haynes, who's been a situational edge guy for them, shoulder limited participation. Dante Jackson with the toe was a full participation. Christian McCaffrey, you already talked about him. He's out for this game. Russell Okung, the tackle with a calf injury, did not participate. I think he injured that last week. And then Ian Thomas, not injury related, didn't participate. He's their tight end. Stephen Weatherly, the finger, did not participate. So, you know, it's about what you'd expect right now for 2 teams in the middle of the season. You know, a lot of names of the injury report. I think right now the Buccaneers probably the healthier team, and again, we'll see if Ali Marpet can continue to make progress and play in this game that they're going to need him, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. It's an interesting question for the Panthers is what's going to happen left tackle if Russell Okung can't go. They've had.
And I think John froze up right there. So
how they're going to treat that moving forward. And I think Trent Scott, I believe, stepped in the last game and played. Greg Little's been really struggled. He was their second round pick a few years ago. And so I think that if you're Carolina and you're looking at this game and you're thinking,
I think we lost John there. We're having some technical difficulties, obviously, with the storm and whatnot. Angelus asks, anyone else still sad about what happened on Sunday? And yeah, what happened on Sunday was rough. There's John. We got him back.
oh, I got you. I lost you too.
Okay. All right.
I lost you for a second.
It might be one of those things where the tropical storm down here in Tampa is raining pretty heavily out there. So it's either me or you or something. So
I wonder whose audio stream the fans got. I don't know if they got yours or I don't know if they got what you were saying or what I was saying. But what I was saying was that I was saying if you're this Panthers offense, I think you have to find a way to manufacture big plays in this game because defensively, like if you look at the Panthers defensively, let's just take a look at them and we'll come back to the Panthers offensive side of the ball in a second. But the Panthers 26th in DVOA on defense this season. But the stats that people like, even just the basic stats are where they're giving up the sixth most 20+ yard passing plays this season. And we saw this last time I played the Panthers, right? The Bucs missed some plays downfield. They should have made. Was this the Cyril Grayson game? I believe with the off the face mask. This is that game. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for big plays for the Bucs offense, which they obviously haven't hit the last 2 weeks. And they rely heavily on 31st and third down defense. Panthers are. That's would be nice for the Bucs to get back on track. And third downs, they've really struggled on third downs. They're 31st in sacks, as we mentioned, and they're also the 5th most penalized defense this season. And the last one, they are tied for 31st in missed tackles per Pro Football Reference. 77 missed tackles this season. And so it's been a little bit tough sledding for this Panthers defense this season. Very young group, almost no experience on the whole group. And really the most experienced guys haven't played very well. But the biggest concern, Scott, cornerback. I mean, this team, how are they going to match up? Cornelder's played well in the slot, I think. But again, it's not a typical, these aren't typical matchups in the slot in terms of the way that you match up and stuff. So I don't think that, Cornelder in the slot, Dante Jackson outside on one side, and the other corner's escaping me right now. Troy Pride has played some for them, their 4th round pick. But he has not. He's been very bad. He's the stumbling, bumbling one on the touchdown a few weeks ago. Was it Matt Ryan? I think on Thursday Night Football ran it in, and Troy Pride was pulling a Daniel Jones, falling all over himself, trying to defend it. And so they've struggled to cover people this season, and I that's where I think the Bucs just have to attack this team because that's just the cornerback is a clear weakness for the Panthers right now.
John, you talked about struggling to cover, and I've had my struggles in covering on my bookie. I've been very transparent about some of my bad weekends. I've had some good weekends though, too. I had a pretty good weekend last weekend. I did bet K-State on the money line against Oklahoma State, and they almost pulled it out. They missed on a 2-point conversion at the end. If they would have won that game, that would have been a huge money line win. But I did have Liberty. Which was, I had Liberty, which even though they were the ranked team, that was at Virginia Tech, and I had Liberty. So I made some coin, John. I made some really good coin on my bookie on that. So I haven't looked ahead yet to this week's matchups, but right after this podcast, I'm going to jump on my bookie, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Whether it's late college football season or the NBA bubble or UFC Fight Island, it's been a wild year, right, in 2020. I mean, it's been like any other year. But that's why you need a sports book like any other. And that's my bookie. If you got some skin in the game at my bookie, where the odd boosts, the lightning deals, the free bets await all season long, and with Turkey Day right around the corner, there's really no better time to feast on some NFL action. So whether you're a first-time customer or you've been playing my bookie for years like I have, I think this is year 3 for me. There's no shortage of value to be found in the thousands of game lines, unique prop bets, and contests that they have every week. Sign up or get reloaded today in your account. Find an edge, make your bet, and get paid. They also boast a fully fledged casino platform, giving you access to all of the classic table games, slots, card games you'd expect to find at your local spot. The best part is At MyBookie, the door is never closed, so you can continue to build your bankroll even after the stadium lights have gone out. Make the right play and sign up today at MyBookie. And when you do, use the promo code PEWTER to get your deposit matched halfway, all the way up to $1,000. The terms are simple. If you put in $200, they're going to give you an extra $100 in your account. If you're already planning to bet this season, that's just free betting money right there at MyBookie using the promo code PEWTER. It's winning season at MyBookie, so come join in on the fun and win some cash while you're at it at MyBookie. And John, listen, I've got a very low risk tolerance. When I bet, I usually bet $5. But the thing is I bet $5 on Liberty and I won $27.50, right? So that to me is the fun part.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm a father of 4. I'm on a tight budget. It's one of those things where I don't have a lot of gambling money to spend, but I'll throw $5 here, $5 there. That way, if I lose $5, no big deal. But that's the beauty of it, is you control your bankroll, and if you use the promo code PEWTER, they're going to halfway match your initial deposit. So it's a great opportunity for you to join in at any time.
One of the things with this Panthers defense, Scott, is we talked about the corner struggles, and Rasul Douglas was the corner that I was forgetting, who's actually played well this season, but it's a zone heavy approach, right? So, the Bucs this season can have success. They can have success against zone or man coverage, but it really depends on how you're deploying your routes, I think. And that's one of the things I'm most interested to see in this game. Are they able to put route combinations together that threaten or flood zones rather than just having route combination and just asking guys to win one-on-one? Because it could work against man coverage where that happens, but a lot of the times when you're facing these zone looks, you need to adjust your play calling to be able to flood certain zones and stress certain defenders rather than just ask. Because if you're asking guys to win one-on-one, a lot of time it's not one-on-one in zone coverage, and so you're running Mike Evans, into a safety, vertically down the field, and so I think that you have to have some eye candy for that safety that takes them somewhere else if you want to be successful, and so. I think that's one of the keys for this game is if the Bucs want to hit big plays, the opportunities are going to be there. The Panthers aren't a great secondary, and they haven't defended the long ball well this season. But I think you have to be creative with the way you deploy your offense. That's what the Chiefs did, and it was really successful for them. And I think the Bucs can do the same thing.
John, you mentioned eye candy, and I look at Tom Brady, and one of the things that makes him so special is he just has so many years in this league that he can really manipulate safeties with his eyes. And I think he's done that a couple times. He did that against Green Bay. He's even done that against Carolina, and allowing Mike Evans to hit that 50-yard shot down the middle. But that only happens when you have good pass protection. If Brady's going to have the time to sit there and look off the safety, he's got to trust that offensive line. So the offensive line has got to step up this week in pass protection. But when they do pass protect for Brady, I think that's a little bit of a secret weapon. And it's something that I think Bruce Arians wanted Jameis Winston to learn how to develop, but he never really did. Holding onto the ball is one thing. Holding onto the ball while you're looking off a safety and then releasing it and creating big play is something else.
Right. And again, this offense, as long as the route combinations are going to stay the same and they're going to be vertically based, it's hard to fault Brady when he checks down, when nothing's open down the field. Again, I know people want to see big plays all the time, but the reality is that you're going to have that in this offense unless they change the way some of these routes are deployed. Now they have flashed it, but they just get impatient. They don't want 10-yard plays, 10-yard drives or 10-play drives. They want to get it all in a chunk. And sometimes that happens and it's great, but I really think against the Panthers, this offense can get on track either way.
One of those times it happened, and you mentioned this too, because Bruce Arians does like to push the ball down the middle of the field, right? And sometimes you're down 21 points. He wants a 21-point play, right?
Yeah.
When you're in 1st and 20, he wants a 20-yard play to get not just back on schedule, but to get the damn first down. And sometimes that happens, right? And we look at the Tyler Johnson catch against the Giants. 1st and 20, Brady throws a dime across the middle of the field for 20 yards, first down. That's rare. That doesn't happen all the time. And I think Bruce Arians thinks it can happen more often. It wants it to happen more often. But Tom Brady's got 21 years of experience saying, well, the best way to convert that first down in that 1st and 20 situation is 6 yards on this play, 8 yards on that play. Then all of a sudden you're in a more manageable 3rd and 6 situation, right? Whereas as you see these routes and how they're designed to go vertical so much that without good pass protection, Brady just doesn't have a chance. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think this Saints game for the offense can be the same type of kind of come to Jesus moment that the Bears game was from a penalty standpoint. We have not seen the Buccaneers have those ridiculous amount of penalties, 9, 10, 11 in a game for 100 yards since the Bears game. They seem to have learned their lesson in that regards. We'll see how Brady and Arians kind of mesh together and find more common ground, because there's a lot that didn't go right for the Bucs offensively Sunday night against the Saints.
Yeah, there was. And there's so many people deserve some level of blame. And we've talked about it a lot at this point.
Yep.
But the big thing is moving forward, like they can't, penalties weren't an issue the other night. Is one of the things that for the most part, penalties were pretty good. I mean, I think they had 5, but they're minute ones. And so I think that's one thing they've continued to stay clean on. But drops, drops reared their ugly head again. And I don't blame Chris Godwin, but he drops a first down conversion on third down. And, and Rob Gronkowski drops a first down conversion on third down or early in the game. Rob Gronkowski drops a touchdown. If Rob Gronkowski catches that, I know we're mad about the fade routes, but if Gronkowski catches that, I'm not saying the Bucs win. They're still down significantly, but it's just we were talking about things a little bit differently. And so, again, these are plays guys have to make, and you can't be up there and leading the league, close to the league lead in drops when you have the amount of talent that the Bucs have on offense. So good news is Antonio Brown played really well, and he looked really good athletically and physically in the game. I think that has to be something they're excited about. I still don't know how I feel about Scotty Miller getting his snaps cut. 19 snaps? I mean, that's, to me, it's just I don't know that we've ever heard of a team that's 6-3 or 6-2 going into a game mid-season, and their leading receiver for the season, the guy who's leading them in receiving yards, is getting their snaps absolutely slashed. And so I like Scotty Miller a lot. I think it's not about just is AB better than Scotty Miller. It's about what does Scotty Miller bring you when he's on the field. He brings you a vertical threat that is nice to have when teams are going to focus more attention over the top on Mike Evans. You're going to get one-on-ones all the time, and Scotty Miller's shown all season long he can win those. I don't know if AB's the same type of receiver. I think AB's great. Short to intermediate, you get AB going. I think he can win down the field, but short to intermediate, quick separation stuff, great. But is the offense going to use him? Is that what they're going to do? Because that isn't really what this offense typically does, and I wish they did more of it. But I say all that to say I'm a little bit worried about Scotty Miller not being as big a part of this offense and the effect that might have on the way teams can focus on Mike Evans.
He's certainly off to a great start this year. And here's one thing that Buccaneer fans have to be concerned about is when you look at this Panthers team, they've got the mirror opposite of the Bucs record, right? They're 3-6, while Tampa Bay is 6-3. But this, looking at the last 4 games, those losses were to Chicago 23-16. That's one touchdown. They've lost at New Orleans 27-24. That's a field goal. They lost to the Falcons 25-17, and it's a game that Atlanta didn't blow at the end, right?
But they were right on the cusp of it.
Yeah, that's an 8-point differential. And then, they go on the road in Kansas City. Arrowhead, a very tough place to play against a very good defending Super Bowl champion. And, they lose 33-31. They tried a 67-yard field goal that actually had the distance. It's just he had to kick it so hard it went wide right. But then if you look at the schedule in its total, they lose in week 1, 34-30 to Las Vegas, and Tampa Bay's victory over the Panthers was the largest margin of victory, 31-17 against any Carolina team. And remember, that touchdown by Leonard Fournette late in the game in the fourth quarter is really what kind of made that score so lopsided. It was much closer than that. Then you look at Carolina's 3 wins, which came in succession. 21-16 against the Chargers. That's 5-point spread. They beat Arizona, a very good Arizona team, by 10 points. And then they also beat the Falcons in Atlanta 23-16. So all of these games are very close. The 2 widest margins was a win against Arizona by 10 points and a loss to Tampa Bay by 14. So this is a Panthers team that despite their record is playing very, very good football. And that Chiefs game, I'm glad that happened because that should get the Buccaneers' attention. The Panthers were in that game right until the very end.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg, I think, brings up a good point as he often does on the show. I'm more interested in the defense, or more disappointed, sorry, in the
Yeah.
defense than the offense. We wrote about this. People can go over and check out. We did a roundtable on this at Computer Report, and we talked about whether we're more concerned with the defense or the offense moving forward. And we all had kind of different opinions on it. But I was talked about how I'm more concerned about the defense.
Yeah.
Offensively, I think there was a kind of a perfect storm of events the other night, and certainly there's some blame and things that need to be fixed. But get Ali Marpet back is big. I really think that. And so I think defensively, this has been trending down for a while, and I'm concerned about it. I'm concerned about the play of Jamel Dean, and I don't think there's an option behind him. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying bench Jamel Dean. He's got to play better, and Todd Bowles has to figure out how to help him play better. Part of it is not putting him in off coverage and asking him to process all the time. It's a struggle for him. I know early on in the season he was making some plays there, but we've seen 3 weeks now where he's been beat by double moves and by eye candy in front of him.
Right.
Roll your corners up and play more press man coverage to help these guys out a little bit more. And I don't know that we're seeing that. And I don't know that Bulls is going to make that adjustment. And I see Devin White struggling in coverage as well. And, I don't know this is your 5th overall pick. You're not taking him off the field. You need him to be a 3-down player. He's got to be better in coverage. He's got to be better technically in man coverage. Like we're not talking about benching people. We're not talking about cutting people. We're not talking about busts. So I don't like when fans get off on those tangents sometimes. Like we're talking about how do we put guys in position and make guys better. It's not about replacing it all the time. Right. It's about how can we make a better usage of what we currently have and what our situation is. And to me, you have to do that with Devin White.
Yeah, you're talking about Devin White, right? And so you're talking about the regression of the defense. And one of the things that I wrote, because I agree with you, the defense regression concerns me. And again, we're talking about the last 3 games against a good Raiders team, a bad Giants team, and a really good Saints team. And looking at those last 3 games, Devin White is really becoming an elite player when he's going forward, right? We just don't like it when he puts the truck in reverse, right, and drops in coverage, because he is not anywhere close to being an elite player. He's not even close to really being an average player at this point. That's really where he needs a lot of work. But going forward, getting to the quarterback, that's really become one of his fortes. And without the Buccaneers really being able to win some of these one-on-one matchups with Jason Pierre-Paul or Shaq Barrett, they need an extra pressure guy. They need to create that 5-man rush, because the 4-man rush just isn't working. Just as an example of that, the Bucs had 3 sacks against the Raiders, 3 against the Giants, only 1 against the Saints. The problem is, out of those 7 sacks, John, Devin White's got 4 of those, right? And we didn't see him go after Drew Brees enough. So what does that tell you? Well, that tells you if he's got 4 out of the 7, then your defensive linemen and your 2 outside linebackers, your edge guys, Shaq and JPP, only have 3 sacks combined in the last 3 games. That's not winning football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to put your players in positions to do what they do best. When Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul are dropping into coverage, these stats are going to blow people's mind. This is going to blow people's mind. Are you ready for this, Scott? Last year, Jason Pierre-Paul played 10 games last season. 10 games.
Yes.
Guess how many times he dropped into coverage last season?
Less than 10.
11 times all season
11.
long.
I was close. Close.
Once a game, he's basically dropping into coverage.
Yeah.
This season, he already dropped into coverage 50 times. They've only played 9 games. He's dropping into coverage like 5.5 times a game. Shaq Barrett, the exact same numbers of coverage reps this season. He had 56 all of last year in a 16-game season. Still might be too much, but he is on pace to almost to double that almost this year. That's how much more they're dropping into coverage. It doesn't make any sense.
Do you think Todd Bowles is outsmarting himself?
I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul has played a long time in the NFL. The most he's ever dropped into coverage in one season in the NFL is 26 snaps. 26. And he's already at 50. He's going to be close to 100 snaps in coverage this season. He is not he's barely even a stand-up linebacker. Like, he's barely even that. He is a pass rusher. That's it. He plays inside on passing downs. You're putting in coverage.
And the thing is and we saw when he broke up a pass the other day, right? And it's amazing what he's been able to overcome from the fireworks accident, right? And it's one thing to ask him to beat the guy in front of him with his hand the way that it is, right? And that's manageable in the trenches, and you can still wrap up and grab the quarterback and bring him down. But asking Jason Pierre-Paul to pick off a pass is problematic, and we saw that pass hit him right in the hands, and that's just something that he really can't do anymore, right? And so,
right.
what's the point then of dropping him into coverage if he's not going to be able to create a takeaway that way? If I'm looking for a takeaway from Jason Pierre-Paul, I want the sack fumble, right? Because he can still do that. So I'm a little concerned. And listen, I know I've sung Todd Bowles' praises, and I still believe in him, in his scheme, and I do think there is some credence to what Bruce Arians said today, that what the Giants and the Saints have been able to do with 12 and 13 personnel, getting those extra tight ends on the field, and really taking away the Bucs nickel packages and some of those exotic blitzes that Bowles does at a nickel, that has limited where Bowles can be really effective. So I think that I think that's something that's really been big is not having that to work out in their favor. And I think that it's a domino effect, John, right? When you don't have the first quarter leads that the Bucs had earlier in the season, and now they're trailing, and the other team has the advantage. Now they can run whenever they want to. I think that it worked better for the Bucs defense for sure when this offense was getting out to early first quarter leads, and all of a sudden teams had to play catch up, get into those passing situations that allowed the Bucs blitzes and pass rush to crank up.
Right. And the Bucs, they have to, again, it comes back to, I hear completely what's being said about the nickel packages, but man, part of the problem is that when you're a nickel, when you're not a nickel for the Bucs, you've got 3 defensive tackles on the field. Will Golston, whatever you consider him, Sue and Nacho or McClendon. Yeah. And that's not really the Bucs' strength right now as a team, especially in pass rush situations. So you want to get those guys off the field. Right, without Vita Vea. So you want to get those guys off the field to be more effective rushing the passer. Like we said, in this game, we don't think the Panthers will go with that type of strategy. Based on who Joe Brady is, how much he loves to use wide receivers and spread the field, it'll be a different type of challenge for the Bucs this week. One of the things I really want to see, and this was actually funny, somebody said, Long Lost Glazer said, JPP has more pass breakups than Devin White, though, even though he's bad in coverage. And I looked it up just to see if this was true, and they actually each have one. But I know JPP's was when Brees threw it right to him on the first drive.
Right.
It doesn't get easier than that, and he dropped it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember Devin White having a pass breakup this season, so I'm going to have to go back and find that play to remember when he broke up a pass this season. But back to Jason Pierre-Paul, why I think it's so important that they don't drop him into coverage and that they do get a nickel and that they do put him inside as a rusher is because the Panthers guards are terrible and they got bullied all over the place by Chris Jones and the Chiefs interior. I think even Derek Nottie was getting pass rush. No offense, Mark Cook. I know you're Florida State guy, but even Derek Nottie, who's not a pass rusher at all, was getting pressure against these Panthers.
Remember, Dominic had 2 sacks, right, for the defense.
And Golston had a great game the last time. Yeah, he hammered Bridgewater on the interception, I believe. And so the Bucs interior pass rush has to win this game. And I think one of the ways that you do that is really by putting Jason Pierre-Paul inside and getting him some looks inside. And if you're having Anthony Nelson on the edge and he can't beat these tackles, especially if Okun's not playing, I don't know what you do at this point. You don't have a third edge rusher and it's hurting the team for sure. But Shaq Barrett's got to step up, got to win matchups in this game. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But this really, defense, that's the big thing, I think, is beating those guards.
You look at Tyler Moton, he did a really good job against Shaq Barrett in week 2.
He's a good player.
He's a good player. He's really developed into a good player. And I think the thing too, John, is remember, this was Tom Brady's second game in Bruce Arians' offense back in week 2 when these teams matched up for the first time. It was also Teddy Bridgewater's second game in the same situation. No OTAs, no mini camps, no training camp. There was some familiarity because Joe Brady spent that time in New Orleans along with Teddy Bridgewater. But really, Bridgewater was a backup, if not for just those 4 games. So I think what we've seen now from Bridgewater, at least what I saw when I was watching that Chiefs-Panthers game, was Bridgewater did a really good job of getting the ball out of his hands quickly in week 2. It's even quicker now, right? I mean, he's getting rid of the ball even quicker. And I think that just comes with the experience of playing with these Carolina receivers, playing in Joe Brady's offense. And so he's not as as hard to sack as Drew Brees by any means. And you mentioned the guards really being a weakness in front of him. But that's one thing that you really have to do. You got to play up, and I think you got to play more press man against these Panthers receivers because they have speed. You can't let them accelerate and get it behind you. And also, too, you want Bridgewater to hang on that ball for an extra second. So if Todd Bowles doesn't scrap this off coverage zone business, it could be a long day for this Bucs secondary. Again.
Yeah, absolutely could be. I mean, the Panthers have not given the ball away, and that the Bucs have relied on turnovers a lot this season. They have not given the ball away this year. They're tied for 7th best, 9 giveaways this year. And really, they remember 3 of those came in the first time these two teams met. So they've done a really good job of trending in the right direction since then. The other thing is that they're efficient and hit big plays. That's why their offense has been successful this season. They are 17 of 34 on deep balls. So they have the same number of deep ball completions that the Bucs do this season in 17. But they are more efficient than the Bucs when they throw them. They don't throw them as often as Tampa Bay's. Hardly anybody threw it. Tom Brady's second in deep ball passing attempts this season in the NFL. These are passing 20 yards or more, by the way. So the Panthers have been really efficient in hitting those, which has been big for their offense. But this is the second highest completion percentage. Remember, first was last week, Drew Brees. Yeah. Second highest completion percentage in the NFL right now is the Panthers when they throw the football. And so they're very efficient, and means that if you play soft zone against them, you're going to get destroyed. And so if Todd Bowles doesn't adjust, the Bucs offense, the Bucs defense has 2 hopes: that the Panthers make mistakes and that lose them the game, and that the blitzes, which hopefully at least, I think Todd Bowles is at least going to get back to blitzing. He blitzes higher than more than any other defensive. I mean, the Bucs are the most blitz heavy team in the NFL. It's not really even that close.
He's got a head coach in Bruce Arians that welcomes pressure at any point in time. And I'm sure that's one thing the head coach says, Todd, listen, man, no risk it, no biscuit, baby. Let's go. So I think you're going to see it. Bowles come around and do that. And it's like right now it feels like Florida's getting blitzed, John. I mean, we're down here, and I'll tell you, Briar Greaves Insurance. They're my new insurance company. I listened to Mark Cook, and I made the call. I talked to Sam and talked to Briar, and I've switched over my insurance policy to Briar Greaves, and I'm glad that I did. And these guys are no joke, because the script that they've sent us way back months ago was right in the middle of hurricane season, which was August and September, right at the start of football season. That's really when you see all those hurricanes typically challenge the Gulf of Mexico and maybe potentially threaten Florida. Here we are, John. We're into November. Hurricane season's supposed to be over, but yet we've got a possible Category 1, at least a tropical storm, Eta, coming, and it forced the Buccaneers to be out of the building by 5 p.m. today, and they had to push some of their stuff back. So here it is. Thanksgiving is less than 10 days away, and here you've got a hurricane and a tropical storm really coming right for Tampa Bay. So it's kind of nuts, but don't wait to have your insurance policies reviewed. Give Briar Greaves Insurance, which is family owned and operated, served the Tampa Bay area for over 30 years, a call for your home, auto, boat, life, commercial, and all of your flood insurance needs. And right now, if you're on the coast of Florida, you're getting some storm surge. So make sure that you give Briar Greaves a call. A lot of homeowner companies are either canceling or not renewing policies. They're leaving Florida, or they're increasing premiums significantly. I had this happen with my previous insurance company. That's why I decided to call Briar Greaves and speak to Sam and Briar for that personalized touch, as well as all the information about the best rates possible. The folks at Briar Greaves Insurance are huge Bucs fans, proud sponsors of the Pewter Report podcast. Visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com or call 813-876-4166. BriarGreavesInsurance.com, or give them a call at 813-876-4166, and you'll be glad that you did.
One of the things I think, Scott, that is going to determine this game, I thought about this game all week. There is some pressure on me, Scott. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm 8-1 this year picking Bucs games. The only L was the Bears game. I thought they would win it.
Right.
I told you I was scared about it. I thought they would win it, and they lost it. But other than that, I'm perfect in the season. So there's a lot of pressure on this game, Scott.
The Saints over the Bucs.
That's right.
Okay.
So if I pick the Panthers in this game, Bucs fans are going to think that I prophesied it into reality.
Right. You're
If
just
they
trying to cling
lose.
to your lead. That's all you're trying to do, right?
I'm trying to cling to my lead, but also
Yeah.
like I'm trying to think about like how do I want to pick this game? Because
Right.
and here's what I came down to, Scott. If I don't pick the Bucs this week, it means I don't believe they're a playoff team.
Yeah.
If the Bucs don't win this game after what happened last week, after the way they were embarrassed on a national stage, after all they've talked about what they learned from the Bears game, now this is a different season and this team is this and that, and I don't care. Win this game. You have to win this game. You can't lose this game. I don't even yes, with the Rams and Chiefs looming, no doubt. The emphasis on this game is huge because if you lose those two, you can still last 4 games of the season, work out, get to 11-5. And I think that that's a realistic possibility for this team to finish the season. You can't lose this football game though, because if you lose this game and you lose the next 2, it's downhill fast. So a lot of people might look at it and say the Panthers are 3-6. They've lost 4 in a row. If they lose one more, their season's essentially over. Maybe they don't think their season really has much of a chance of the playoffs now, and I'd agree. But there's still a talented football team, and they're still a team that I think looks at this and says our back's against the wall. We need to play. We need to play desperation mode because if we lose this game, we're out. Like we don't have any chance of the playoffs. But the Bucs have to come with more desperation, period. They have to. The way that they played last week is totally unacceptable. There's blame on all levels that you can, but it's just unacceptable. You can't do it again. And if I picked against them this week, in my mind, I don't know how I could pick against them and say, this is a playoff team. And I believe they're a playoff team. I still believe that. I'm not ready to throw in the towel on that at all yet. And so because of that, I'm picking the Bucs, Scott. I'm worried about the Panthers offense, but I think they blitz them. I think they get to Teddy Bridgewater eventually. I think they rattle him up, force him into some mistakes, and I think the offense gets back on track. I don't know if it happens the first drive of the game. God, I would love for it to happen on the first drive of the game because the way they've started games is pitiful lately. But to me, that this is a game you have to win. The Panthers, yes, they might be good for a 3-6 team, but they're a 3-6 team. Take care of business, get a win, move on to the big dogs in the next 2.
Did you throw out a score there, John?
Score 27 to 14.
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
I don't know.
I think that this is going to be a close game because that's kind of the Panthers' MO. And I think the Buccaneers are going to show some improvement and they're going to get a win this week. But it's going to be kind of almost like that New York Giants game on Monday Night Football. I see Tampa Bay winning this game 27-23. It's a lot closer than people want it to be. It's a lot closer than people expect it to be. But I do believe that the Panthers are a better team than their record shows. And this is a must-win game, John, as you point out, for one reason, and that's if the Buccaneers lose this, they are 1-3 in the NFC South this year. 1-3. That means they've split with the Panthers. They got swept by the Saints. You got the Falcons coming up. So if you lose this game, there's virtually no way that the Saints are going to lose this division. There's still a chance right now if the Buccaneers can gain some momentum, sweep the Falcons down the road, and if the Saints have a stumble or two, maybe the Buccaneers can catch up. It certainly hurts that the Saints swept Tampa Bay. But I like the Bucs winning in a close fashion, 27-23. It might come down to another perfect game from Ryan Suckup. Actually, I believe it will. I think Suckup will have to be perfect. He has been, in my opinion, the best and most consistent player on this Tampa Bay team, without a doubt.
No, why'd you say it? If they lose on a missed field goal, Scott, I'm coming for you. It's
my fault. Yeah,
my record.
It's on video now. Yeah. I won't be allowed to be on any more Pewter Report podcast.
I'm clipping this podcast. You're going to get suspended again. I'm clipping
I
this
believe
scene.
in Ryan Suckup. I'm a Suckup believer. So, and I'm not sucking up to Suckup. I honestly believe he's a good kicker.
I do too. I do. I'm scared to say it, but I do. But I think that you're right. At the end of this game, Scott, how this game goes. I'm not just talking about win or loss either. I think how they win is very important. I think you cannot play great football and win this game. I wouldn't bank on it. I'm not saying it's probable that they would. I'm just saying I think I could see that outcome, and I could see me going. I don't feel any different about them. I think than I did coming off the Saints game. Really, like they could lose the Rams, they could lose Chiefs. But so how they respond when you are a team that is mired in a losing culture. The Bucs aren't they the losingest franchise in the NFL history wise? I don't care who you are. You can bring all new bodies in, but until you do it, it doesn't change. So it's 6-3 is great, but you haven't done it. And Bruce would be the first one to say, he always says, we haven't done anything yet. Until you've done it, it's that culture's still there. It still sits around. It still waits. So to me, this is a game where you have to say, that team that showed up last week, it happens. It doesn't excuse it, but it happens. But that's not us. And they have to go out and they have to win this game, and they have to play great, and they have to win one of these next two, I think, too, against the Rams and the Chiefs. I don't think you can lose to the top teams on your schedule and consider yourself a real threat when the playoffs come around. And so it's a huge game for the Bucs. They need to come out just as desperate, if not more, than the Carolina Panthers in this game.
Yep, I'm with you, John.
All right, well, that's our thoughts on the game, our predictions for the game. You can get the whole Pewter Report crew's predictions over at pewterreport.com. We'll have that up for you about 48 hours before game time. So on a Friday, look for that piece. It should be up. Panthers and Bucs play at 1 on Sunday. And after that game, we will have this podcast live for you again. I skipped Thursday. Tomorrow, I will be on the podcast as well. Taylor will be joining me. We will have a guest. We're trying to get, and we believe Tyrone Poole, ex-Carolina Panthers first-round pick and cornerback. Yeah, he is going to join us on the show, and he's going to talk about some Bucs Panthers with us. So I'm really excited about that and to talk to him tomorrow on the show.
So John, Tyrone Poole was the second Panthers draft pick ever. He was a first-round pick after they selected Kerry Collins in 1995. So he came in with me. I started covering the Buccaneers in 95 along with Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks on that 95 Bucs team. So you can cover a lot of bases with him, from Carolina Panthers football to playing the Buccaneers back in the day. He also played on 2 Super Bowl teams with Tom Brady in New England.
Yeah, right.
That's going to be a hell of a show, John.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm really excited about it. I think he's going to have some great insights, and hopefully he's got some stories for us too. We'll look forward to that for sure. But then we'll come back
tomorrow.
4 o'clock tomorrow. Yeah, that's the hope. Yeah, watch the Twitter account at Pewter Report to see and make sure that time stays consistent with guests. It's always a little bit up in the air. We try to work with them, but shooting for 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So that should be a fun show. And then Sunday, like I said, we'll be on after the game. We'll break everything down. We'll have the live show. We'll get fan reaction and everything, and all your questions, comments, criticisms on Monday's show at 4 p.m. And then we'll launch it. We're off Tuesdays, and then we're back Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll have pods next week, 4 p.m. too. So it's been great stuff. Y'all have been awesome. We appreciate the love and support. Go to Pewter Report on YouTube, Pewter Report TV, and subscribe, get those notifications from when we go live, and tell friends and family, man. You love the Bucs. You're talking Bucs with people. If you like this show, tell your people about us. We want new fans. We want to bring in new people too. We love seeing all the normals that are in here for the show in the comments. It's one of the things that makes us smile every week, but we want to see new people, more people. I saw a couple people jumping in, like, this is my first time jumping in live, and that's awesome. Like, I'm pumped about that. And so just keep bringing that and keep adding that to what we're doing, because it'll be exciting for us to be able to see new, fresh faces as part of the show too. So appreciate y'all. Love y'all. We'll catch you again tomorrow with Tyrone Poole and Taylor Jenkins on the podcast with me. Until then, thanks so much for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.